Hello, good morning. Welcome to This Morning. I am Mamadou Mbodj. I'm presenting today and I'm joined by the other Mamadou. My name is Mamadou Gajaga. Hello, Gajaga.
Yes.
Well, this is an unusual situation we find ourselves in that way. We've never done this before, have we?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm here for the first time in this capacity. I've been here on a different capacity, obviously, to talk about sports. Yeah, but for the first time to be a co-host on This Morning, can't be more excited about what is to come on my plate.
Enjoy the ride.
Yeah, most definitely.
What we do, the first item, obviously, the African proverb. This is our thought for the day, as it were. And then from there, we go on to the newspaper review. The guest is here. I will introduce him later. And then afterwards, we're going to have the Director of Economic Policy and Research Unit. I think this is at the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Lamin Bojang will be talking about the impact of the African Caucus 2026. We just hosted it, and remember, Dangote gave a powerful, brilliant speech. So we'll be talking to Mr. Bojang about that. And our final segment, Course Africa, Gambia 6 volunteers. This is the organization that trains young Gambians so that they can serve in rural communities where they're really needed, but not seen all the time. So I will have the country director, Mr. Fode Bojang, and the communication officer, Mariama Sanyang, our final segment. We'll be talking about that. So, gentlemen, well, now I can introduce our newspaper review guest because he can join in our discussions on the African proverb. Mr. Malika, no other than Mr. Malika, GM of QTV. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. As always, it's my pleasure.
All right. Nice. So let's get started. The proverb: few are the good teachers, numerous are the followers. Yoruba. It was Yoruba saying, quite interesting. Few are the good teachers, numerous are the followers.
Yeah, I think that's a very in-depth, in terms of construction. I mean, if you create any situation, you will always have leaders that emerge, because not everybody in a situation can be a leader. Leaders are not appointed, nor are they created, but they are, by their own assertion, take the leadership. So it's the teacher and followers. In societies, since its creation, you will always have somebody that, guide. That is how we created communities, actually. And that is how, if you retrace the footsteps of kingdoms, that's how kings became, or leaders of communities. Somebody will have to just take and the rest would lead, depending on what qualities that you have to impose yourself or to take the challenges, that are demanding and be at the front or be very proactive in terms of assignment or task that has been given to you. You become very prominent and surface. So leaders normally are there, and then you have the rest are followers. That's just in the state of things.
That's it. For me, leaders are very rare, so be careful who you follow. What do you think?
Yes, sir. Leaders, like they said, leaders are born, they're almost in their own making, the chosen ones, most definitely. But you'd also have a lot of people who would be the followers. If you put them in leadership position, is either they couldn't handle it and they have to give it away, or along the way they stumble. So obviously you have people who are born leaders, and the rest could be followers.
Yeah, you reckon leaders are born?
May I ask, what are the qualities of a leader and what are the qualities of the followers? Because there must be a distinction between these two categories.
Yeah.
How would you classify them? To identify them?
A leader, I think you must have a vision, and you must have that charisma, that capacity to inspire people. When you don't have that, you're not really a leader. So a lot of people just walk in front, thinking that they're leading. They're not. Capacity to inspire people towards a project, and then you fulfill. Yeah, a leader must be able to do that. So here we have rulers, heads, but they really cannot inspire their people. And that is an important element of being a leader, I feel. So, and I will even expand this. To be honest, when you look at in all areas of human improvement, be it science, engineering, anything. The beginning, the pioneers, they're always few.
Yeah,
And then afterwards, the generality of mankind come in.
Yes.
So the true radical revolutionaries, those who move human society, those who move the needle in human evolution, they're necessarily few.
They always do things differently.
Absolutely.
They don't
You
follow
start
the crowd,
something.
you know, and by not following the crowd, sometimes they stand out. And you have identified one characteristic, which is being very articulated. You know, you have to be able to inspire.
Absolutely.
Sometimes also by your action. You know, sometimes you are so creative that the things that you do, let's say in a setup where, you know, you have scientists, you know, somebody that is exceedingly curious, you know, doing things the other way, you know, just becomes somebody that is prominent and lead the crowd or the group, so to speak.
So it's leadership by example. That's really what it is. I mean, people who just go around talking, nobody listens really, but we see what you do. You know, as somebody.
You're being judged by your own actions. Basically, what you
about
do.
the followers? Who
Yeah.
are the followers?
Well, the rest of us, we don't come up with any original ideas, but we can see a good idea and follow it. So most people will be followers.
Are they normally gullible? Are they normally...
I do not know. Maybe sometimes, not all the time. Just as who was the American president who said, you cannot really fool all of the people all of the time.
All of the time.
You see, you can fool them sometimes, but
Sometimes,
not all of the
not
time.
all
It
of the
doesn't work
time,
like that. So, yes.
Yeah, because I think in the sense of the followers, they could also spot out certain things, maybe weakness in a leader and point it out. And obviously, if you're a good leader, that should help you to step up. You should be able to improve upon whatever that you are doing in that leadership role and position. So some followers might spot that, but others, like you said, could be gullible to just be followers,
They
whatever
give their
decision.
faith. They
exactly.
they just follow the crowd wherever it goes.
But it's easier
Regardless.
to be an originator. That's difficult. It's easier to just follow the crowd, isn't it?
Because the leader take the risk and all the, you know, impediments.
So different categories of leaders. What categories are we talking about? Are we talking about the good leader? Are we talking about somebody who is brutal somehow in a way? Because they're still leaders as well.
I call them rulers.
Rulers.
Yes, in a general sense, you can call them leaders. But here we are using leadership in a more evaluative,
way.
isn't it? A sense here. What is a good leader? Who is a good leader? What are the characteristics or the features? So that was why my category is not mine really, but this is generally what writers say, the division, that ability to inspire and then inspire into action.
Yeah.
We have a project, maybe a national project, then they follow me and we do implement.
Yeah, but you can
our
have a
vision.
leader that's a bad leader, but still a leader. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that leadership defines you as somebody that is good. There are lots of bad leaders in history who were leaders, but it depends in the context and the history. If you look at the people like Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan, we just come back from China and I saw that wall, 2,000 kilometers of wall, it was built to stop the Mongols coming across. So you can imagine, and these people are defined as some of the toughest, biggest leaders in history. But they were rampaging the whole place at that time. So the context also matters.
But
If you
again,
look
they
at-
inspired their people.
They do.
See, this is really what we're talking about.
Yes, but,
So,
but,
this is
but
division,
to what effect do
inspire.
they use it in a good sense or bad sense? That is relative. That is where,
It's-
you know,
it's neutral, isn't it?
if,
It's a
if,
neutral
if you are a
term.
Mongol and you are achieving, expanding, growing, your leader is doing great. The victims to that would see it in a different light.
different
So
way,
that
yeah.
is the variation in terms of, you know, relativity.
So here, I think what is the key takeaway? To me, it shows that I should sort of value good mentors and I should be careful who I follow. Because these people are rare. There are few. So I should be careful who I follow. When you look around the world, so-called influencers, this is particularly pertinent in our world today of social media and so many different voices, all these silos, and now having this category called influencers, influencing you to do what, I wonder.
But
So-
in life, people are attracted you know, to different things. What attracts you and what attracts me towards gravitating towards a person is completely different. It depends on our philosophical foundation, how we see life, what do we think. Some people might choose to follow a leader like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King. Others, you know, as you remember in America, Malcolm X in terms of style, substance, and difference. So there are different things that a person look for into a person in order to make that person a hero or, you know, pursue. So some in football, some choose Ronaldo, some choose Messi, some choose Pele, as you know. So it depends, you know. What
that's an interesting one.
Yes.
But I feel that there must be a more fundamental common ground so that we can discuss our differences, yes, and then still understand each other. We speak the same language. You see, this is the way that you can the only way you can resolve conflict, when conflict emerges. If there's not that basic common ground of what truth is, we are beginning to lose it. Now we talk about post-truth. That is why the discussion is extremely difficult between so-called the culture wars over there, woke and that. They're not listening. There's no fundamental common language to appeal to. How do you negotiate?
Yeah, well, sometimes conflicts are resolved through imposing. You know, sometimes it's not necessarily
the imperialist.
Yeah,
the imperialist.
You can impose yourself
course,
if you're more powerful on guys or whoever,
this
depending on what weapons you have or what influence in terms of, you know, how you speak or what you do, depending on what you're holding. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, do you want to add any more to this?
Yes, when it comes to leadership, I think it's a tough one. It depends on whoever amongst us, what type of leader are you looking forward to. Like you said, in this day and age, social media has a lot of influence. People watch, they look at so many things, and you know, they get inspired by a particular person because of their style, because of what they talk about, and then others also, you know, have a completely different way of following.
How many people follow Cristiano Ronaldo, I heard? How many millions?
Millions.
Hasn't he hit billion yet?
I think he hit 1 billion on social media.
Something like that.
Everything
social
combined.
Media. Exactly.
From
all these
Instagram
celebrities.
to social media and all of that, yeah. And you have others who would definitely follow celebrities, and they inspire them. They want to live like them. They enjoy their style. And you have others who are completely politicians, like they follow the political class. Elitism, if you like, and you have the normal, ordinary person as well.
Be careful who you follow. Don't do cult of personality. With me, what I say is that I respect somebody or admire them insofar as they embody certain values. The day they abandon the values, I will abandon you. Right. You know, I don't do cult of personality. Yeah. You must mean something.
Yeah, but that is the distinction between the critical and non-critical person. If you are critical, you look at the leader and assess and analyze the footsteps, the direction, the sayings, and all those things. Or if you are a cultist, you just, regardless of what that person does,
you abandon your autonomy.
Yeah, your intellect, your everything is completely lost, and you just follow. Wherever, some people can even tell you to commit suicide, and then
you do.
You have these mass suicides, and people from the outside don't understand how can these people follow this guy towards this stupid project.
Yeah.
You know, so it just says human beings can be very powerful in terms of control. So do not allow your emotions or sentiments to be controlled by somebody else. Be yourself, be analytical. Yes, you can be inspired, you can like somebody, but they are still human and they can err. So reserve that judgment to yourself and assess the person and not go with the person into a deep hole.
They can err. To err is human, to forgive divine.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much there, Mr. Ka. Now we go on to our newspaper review, Mr. Gachi. Now, what do we have here? The Observer. What is this? SSHFC. This is the main splash of the Observer. Social Security. Roll out major Mandinaba housing estate plot sales.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially low-cost housing is something that should really be addressed. If you look at the conditions in terms of renting, the cost of renting and all that. And also the income level of the average Gambian is so low to the extent that without the intervention and support of the state, sometimes it's difficult for people. So these type of projects, they are welcome. And I think they should do more of them. Also, they should have that partnership between the private and the public sector to provide low-cost housing, access to financing, and all these things to enable a certain category of people to really start having, you know, a home and call it a home. It doesn't have to be something extraordinary, but at least the minimum basic things have to be there. And they can do it, you know, public-private partnership with a good framework in terms of land allocation, assessment, access to financing, a host of other things, package, convert together, they should be able to do it. And then create a lot of employment and also make the construction industry also become more viable. So I think that's a welcome news, and let it be equitable. Let, you know, the criteria be in the public domain. Let there be transparency, and those people, every Gambian should be eligible and entitled land allocation. If it is being given to one section of the community, it should also extend to the rest of the society, especially those that do not have.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what is low-cost housing.
Yes.
How would it look like? How much would I pay a month?
A
I don't
month,
know.
yes. So it depends on how much you earn. It depends on your pocket. So talking about equity there, I think that's really very important, especially for the less privileged, if you like to use a title like that, for so many Gambians who live on paycheck to paycheck. So those kind of people, I think, were well deserved in terms of transparency. And, you know, if the application process goes through in a very good system where, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's the deserving people who get this land allocation and somehow will help change their life, steady their life in terms of having a good shelter. Because it's very difficult for many people. They're going through troubled times when it comes to paying rent. It's very expensive to cope with it if you don't have that depth of pocket. Obviously, it's going to be very tough. So having land allocation for the less privileged, or
let
it
not be political.
Political,
let
yes,
it be,
exactly.
You know, non-patronage kind of system. Let it be accessible. That's why I say transparency is very important in this kind of things, so that people can know that they're being treated, you know, equally. So you go through the processes without any prejudice, and then if you are entitled, let them, and let it not be allocated to people who already have a home, a house allocated, you know. Let's give chance to those who don't have. Some people are exceedingly greedy. They would just go try to acquire more, and that's not fair.
Another headline on the front page of The Observer: Tourism Minister accuses aggressive bumpsters of damaging Gambia's image.
Yeah, sometimes they can be a pain. I read one young lady who came here as a tourist, and she was complaining that she's been to many countries, but the way she's being harassed and hassled, you know, through following, and sometimes it gets to a point that, you know, it's really, you know, annoying and really scary to some of these people because they're not used to it. So I think they should have their limitations. You know, people need their own privacy, and they need their own respect. If they say no, it means, you know, just leave them, let them go, but you don't have to, you know, follow person from 1 kilometer he's going about a walk, just harassing, asking, you know. Sometimes it can definitely be annoying. It does. Sometimes they even do it to people like us who go to the beach. They follow you, selling you something, and then you say, I'm fine, thank you. Just respect that and walk away, because all these things matter. And I think he is right to address and look at those issues.
Yeah, so that's one aspect, and there's another aspect. Wasn't it Adi who was telling me the other day, a woman around Cuckoo Ocean who had her bag snatched. Everything, passport, whatever, everything in there gone. So stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really bad image, tainted image for the country, and tourism is an industry which the Gambia needs, gets a lot of resources from it through GDP, and also for a sector like tourism, it needs to be protected, promoted very well. Gambia is an attractive country to many European tourists who come here for holiday, for leisure. And I think when it comes to the harassment aspect of it, that is really, really bad. Yes, you have some bumpsters who would help the people who are on holiday, showing them sights, showing them our culture and tradition. Yeah, that's a beautiful aspect of it. But also to have somebody follow you on your trail everywhere you go, harassing you, that's really bad.
Yeah, I think they can enlighten them more, work with them, say, look, you have a role to play. Obviously, the bombsters have a role to play. Like Gajaga pointed out, they can take them to places, show them around, protect them. But like you pointed out, there is the security aspect of it as well. And tourism without security is always, bound to fail. So they must feel safe, they must feel secured, and also they have to interact with the local people. We don't want them also to create a barrier between the tourists and the people. Sometimes they come for that experience. But also the bombsters who are at the beach side, they know each other, they should behave in a professional way, that they will be respected. And they can still make friends and then go show them around. I think that's the beauty of it. Let's them look at the balance, how they can construct a situation that, is a win-win for everybody. Let's not try to stop the young people, because sometimes the tourists, they come for that experience as well.
Yes, it's a matter of balance, you're correct. Final story from this paper. Police arrest alleged Oryx gang members in Kanifing crackdown. Can you imagine gang members?
Gang members. There's something unimaginable in the Gambia. Even those of us who were born around the mid-80s, growing up in the early 90s, that's almost unheard of. Gangs. We live in new times.
But there are lots of gangs. It depends on the definition. They move in groups, and they sometimes even use weapons, and they terrorize you, and we have seen them. There are certain communities, and they exist. Birkama is usually pointed out around my area. Dirma Kolong,
that's a hot spot for
there.
crime.
You have a lot of bad apples around hanging and doing a lot of bad things there. And not just there are lots of them, and you see them. Sometimes they move in groups, and they can be very intimidating. I think it's about time the police start using intelligence to identify these groups where they're located and start, destroying all their hives, so to speak.
Good. Let's move on to the point. Fence demolished, tensions rise, $425,000 investment reduced to rubble. Where I do not know where.
Don't have a clue about that.
Does that have to do with somebody's
possibly, maybe
demolished?
possibly somebody had built sort of in a location where one shouldn't have. But there's been some fence demolition. There's a fence, that's it, and tensions are rising. So that's something that perhaps we need to...
You encroach into somebody's property illegally, or you do something illegal that is bound. Some people, they just, decide to do what they think that is, Sometimes the law does caught up with you. So you must be careful before you do anything. Make sure that you have everything within the law, and then you are protected.
Okay.
If you do things outside of the law, then, well, things can happen.
NDP leader promises reform in healthcare, agriculture, and education. Is this Keba? Is it Keba?
Keba Madi-Bojang.
Yeah, that's it.
So recently made the headlines.
Yes, reform in healthcare, agriculture, and education.
Did a big rally at the buffer zone, so I understand the turnout is really good. Yeah. So these things, politicians.
Is it a registered party?
NDP.
NDP.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure.
I'm too sure, but.
Well, what I want to say is, it's time we hear from our politicians their policies, their programs. This is what interests the people. Let them tell us what is in their manifestos, what they want to do for the next 5 years. It's a battle of ideas. Gambia belongs to all of us. So the democratic space must be opened, and anybody that want to contest can come and tell us what you want to do for the people. And I expect the media landscape also to open up, accommodate all these people. Let's hear the battle of ideas. Let them come and contest and tell us what they want to do and give us their promises and so on, rather than just, exchanging, some insults and whatever. That doesn't help. It would help more if they talk about you in terms of policies, in terms of programs. Even if you don't win, people respect you, and they could hear you loud and clear as to what you intend to do for the people. That is what we are expecting from our politicians.
Yes, well, this one is promising reform. See how that one looks like. A bit of international here. Macky Sall to meet President John Maifai on Friday, and I've read somewhere that he'll probably come here.
Yeah.
You know, he's on the hustings now to become UN Secretary General, isn't he? So looking for friends.
Yeah.
What do you place?
So pictures of him on social media. I think he's in Saudi Arabia to perform Umrah or something like that. Yeah, time to make amends, time to make friends, time to look for that very important position, UN Secretary General. That's a hugely influential position, especially for an African. Before, of course, Kofi Annan.
Boutros Ghali.
Yeah.
As well.
I think Boutros Ghali was the first.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show that something have changed in Senegal. The political, landscape is completely different. Few months ago, this would have not been heard of. When PASTEF was a unified body, and now they have fractured, as we had, between UDP at the time in 2016. When there is that fracture, then friends. The whole configuration changes. You start making new friends from different camps, and this is what we are seeing. That is why Macky is able to come to Senegal. Otherwise, they are intending to indict him, or they're being accused him of a lot of things before he left. I don't know whether, fact or otherwise. But then the terrain was very hostile. So he wasn't that welcome a few months ago. But now it seems he's doing the rounds and then trying to talk to the leaders in the sub-region, because Senegal were saying that Macky never approached us, so we couldn't back him unless and until he officially comes. I think that is what he's intending to do. And he have to pass through Gambia, obviously. We are sister neighbors to Senegal, and then maybe he would be advised by President Barrow, obviously, about one or two things, and then continue his journey into Dakar.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Malika. We've come to the end of that segment. We'll just take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk to Mr. Lamin Bojang, Director of Economic Policy and Research Unit at the Ministry of Finance, about the impact of the African Caucus 2026 that just ended recently. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Hello, welcome back to This Morning. I'm Mamadou Mbodj, and my co-presenter today is Mamadou Gajaga. So, Gaj, how is it so far?
Yeah, it's been going good. Enjoying every bit of it.
All right. Now to our next segment. Mr. Malika has left, but now we're joined by Mr. Lamin Bojang, who is the Director of Economic Policy and Research Unit at the Ministry of Finance. And he's here to talk about the impact of the African Caucus 2026. We had recently an international event, hosted an international event, massive event, attended by the richest man on the continent, Aliko Dangote. So we'll have Mr. Bojang here to tell us more what has been the impact of this grand event we just hosted. Welcome to the program, Mr. Bojang.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbodj and Mr. Gajaga, for inviting me to QTV. So, as you highlighted, the event was a resounding success. We have the richest man in Africa, Mr. Aliko Dangote, attending. We also have the Prime Minister from Guinea-Bissau attending. We have about 18 different finance ministers, plus governors of central banks, as well as directors from international financial institutions, the president of the African Development Bank, just to name it. Also, not forgetting the vice presidency from the World Bank. So this is just telling you that it's one of the best caucus that I have ever seen. Of course, in other countries, not necessary to call names, but in a particular country, only 3 finance ministers were there. In another one, about 7. So having 18 finance ministers definitely is a success. Yes. So to come to the impact of the caucus, the impact...
But maybe first, what was the purpose of it? And then afterwards, we evaluate the impact.
Okay.
What happened? What was the purpose? What happened then?
Yeah, the purpose of the caucus is to serve as a platform for ministers of finance and governors of central bank, whereby they'll be able to unify the voice of Africa in their communication with the head of the Bretton Woods institutions. Okay, one key important output of the caucus is that at the end of every caucus, they produce a document called the memorandum. This memorandum is shared with the head of these various institutions to highlight Africa's position. How do we want the partnership between Africa and the Bretton Woods institutions to be in terms of the cost of financing, the development initiatives, and other developmental needs that Africa is, confronting. So these are the issues that are reflected in the memorandum. Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
To have a unified voice.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yes. The caucus was able to come with a memorandum, even though the memorandum will be further refined before the annual meetings, which will happen this year in Thailand. That will be in October. Yeah. So now the caucus has come out with that working document, which we are still working on, and by let's say end August or early September, everything will be finalized and then shared with the ministers, which will be presented. And this time, in fact, it will be presented by the Gambia's Minister of Finance, Honorable Sidi Keita, to the President of the World Bank and the Managing Director of the IMF.
But can you just take us through what is this unity? You are unified around what ideas?
Yes.
Because the whole point was, remember Dangote saying that industrialization is really what we need, and intra-Africa trade, and that sort of thing. How is that reflected, I suppose, in the final?
All those points will be reflected in the memorandum, because remember, the memorandum carries issues of development concern, be it the cost of borrowing. If you look at regions across the world, Africa has the highest cost of borrowing because of the perceived risks. Okay? So there is a need to de-risking, political stability and other things which are there. Okay, there is also the issue of industrialization, because this is something which is the cardinal pillar of for any economy to grow. Remember, if you are moving from an agrarian economy, it's very difficult to jump directly to services without going through manufacturing, because manufacturing is where the jobs are. Okay? That's why Dangote, in his speech, by also having a very good understanding of the African ecosystem, highlighted the need for industrialization. Industrialization is there. That's why part of the caucus, part of the subtopics, is not only looking at financing need, but is also looking about transforming Africa's mineral resources. This is all part of, industrialization. The petroleum sector, where Dangote is very active in, is all part of that industrialization drive towards making sure that Africa is well industrialized, and then people are definitely benefiting from the impact of industrialization. Yeah.
But are we? What has been holding us back? Because really, without addressing that impedimenta, then you're not going to move forward. Because one could sense that sense of frustration in his voice, saying that it's time to move away from potential. We're always talking about potential, from potential to actual. So we've been talking about industrialization for a very, very long time. It hasn't happened. So what would change it? What did you talk about that would actually move the needle?
That's very important. As you said, we don't eat potential.
That's
the reality. Okay, if you don't transform your potential into a reality, it's just a dream. So what is important here? That's why the caucus is important. Here you have the top-notch policymakers in Africa, whereby you confront them with the challenges of power, which is very important for industrialization. You challenge them the need for political stability, okay? So that any action that we take is able to champion good governance, okay? You also, confront them with the need for connectivity. Connectivity is something which is very, very important. like you have the Africa Free Continental Trade Area. But still now you have binding constraints in the area of free movement of people, goods and services. Okay, until and unless we come up, with clear frameworks, we come up with the clear frameworks to make sure that some of those impediments, we remove them. Because some of them you can have all the good laws, the policy documents here and there, framework guiding the movement of goods and services, but until and unless you practicalize those things, because remember, some of those things are political impediments. If you load a good from Gambia, you want to move to another country, you go through several hurdles. The same thing applies to those countries. If they also want to come to Gambia, they're facing the same hurdles. Okay? It's difficult to industrialize with those hurdles, because industrialization normally is very effective when you have the scale, when you have the market. Okay? Look at the road infrastructure. If you want to move from Banjul to Accra, do we have the road infrastructure? So this is something which is definitely challenging. If you want to do like a mega refinery or major transformation of goods and services in our region, do you have the requisite electricity to be able to do that? We understood that there were companies which were around, once they want to go into major production, they go into generators, just to avoid disappointment with the power supplier. So these are some of the things. And you cannot do industrialization for you to break even with lesser cost and maximize your scale with these binding constraints. It's difficult.
So this meeting with Bretton Woods, I couldn't help think when Dangote said there are some institutions in the world who do not want to see Africa progress. I couldn't help think, was this a naughty dig at IMF, World Bank? You've seen a certain shift, particularly Francophone, I think, much more than with us. People don't think that with these Bretton Woods institutions, they can help us industrialize. They will not help us develop. They're more like kind of Band-Aid. It's just an emergency. But the decisive shift, maybe they will not do it. Why do we keep on having these caucuses? For how long have we had it? What's the impact over all these years? I think you first had it in 1963. Mm-hmm. What has been the impact? We are still crying over old wounds.
Yeah, when you look at partners, they will accompany you in your development drive. But the boldness, the leadership, the vision must be driven by you as an individual, you as a country. So, even in our micro setup as a human being, if you are over 60 years, definitely you should be mature enough to take care of your basic needs. You cannot expect to be on diapers at this time. And this is this tragedy, for Africa. Yes, our partners are very important. They are our development partners. They help us with our, financing needs, our developmental needs. They definitely come. But when it comes to development, you cannot solely rely on them. You have to create your own initiative. One challenge that we also have, especially in many African countries, is resource mobilization. Because if Africa is not able to mobilize adequate resources, then it's a challenge, because most of the developments that you do, be it road, hospitals, schools, these are things, investment that cost a lot of resources. But if you are not able to generate adequate resources to finance your developmental needs, of course you have to look outside. This is where the development partners also come in. But now, internally, look at your structure within your ecosystem. How will you be able to mobilize those domestic financing for you to be able to do your own development? So these are some of the challenges that Africa is still confronted with. Because if you look at even, let's say, tax payment, if you look at within the OECD, which is the developed countries, basically tax to GDP, you're talking about like 35%. Okay? Within the ECOWAS sub-region is about what? 16%, basically. But come to Gambia, it's like almost 13%. So with that quantum of mobilization, it's difficult for you to do some of the things. But there are ways, of course, through digitization, through effective and efficient utilization of the resources that you are able to mobilize, and through reprioritization, because remember, you have different needs. But most of those needs, you will not be in a position to finance all those needs, which means then you have to reprioritize. And there are also spaces whereby the private sector can come into. If you go to other countries, like you have toll roads. Of course, roads are public roads, but when it comes to the investments, these are things that the private sector can come in. That's why you pay tolls in certain highways or certain infrastructures, be it in the US. Okay? These are just few examples. There are a lot of things whereby if you have a very strong and vibrant private sector, you might not need government investment in some of those things.
Yes, Mr. Bojo, if I can just jump in here. Talking about industrialization, where does the Gambia find itself with the challenges and current realities in terms of infrastructure? Let's say, for instance, electricity. There are certain companies, if you want to establish them here, industries maybe producing some certain goods, you need obviously stable electricity 24/7. So where does the Gambia stand in terms of industrialization?
Well, I think it's challenging, but it's also improving. Remember, if you look at the situation, let's say 5 years ago, you look at the level of connectivity and the stability of electricity 5 years ago, and you look at the situation now, definitely you will see a massive improvement in terms of access and also in terms of stability, which is definitely encouraging. I think if the trend keep on improving, definitely there is hope. There is hope for industrialization as far as the Gambia is concerned. Because remember, when we also talk about industrialization, you start from the basics. You know, of course, you need these heavy and high-tech industries. Definitely, every country needs it. But based on our situation now, I think the basic things that we need to focus on is how can we transform some of our basic things that we need so that our people will be able to benefit from it in terms of like our consumables, you know, I mean, how to call it, even toothpick. It's surprising that, you know, sometimes we import toothpicks, you know, which is just...
Virtually everything is being imported,
exactly.
yeah,
So
everything in this country.
These are some of the challenges. So some of these micro industries, you know, you should be able to do those things because those ones, they don't need a lot of power consumption and the like. All they need is the stability, stable power supply, you know, but they don't need like a lot of power like if you are doing with, let's say, working in the chip industry whereby you produce these AI chips and the like. No. Yeah.
Can we try to clarify something here in terms of Dangote's speech? Did he at any point made a promise that, you know, he would want to invest $2 billion in the Gambia? And is that this physical money here is $2 million? So, well, let me play the devil's advocate here. I know, on social media, that's how it's been.
I don't think he says
anything like that in the speech, not in the speech. Money mentioned.
No, in the speech, no, not in, I can't remember things mentioned in that, but I think in his communication with the executive, maybe some of those things might, you know, come. But I also saw it, because I was busy with the caucus, I also saw on the newspaper that he pledged to
invest in the
about
energy sector,
$2 billion USD in strategic sectors.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, which is definitely
what's our GDP? Isn't it 2 billion?
About 2 billion.
They're going to invest 2 billion. Yeah. Anyway, maybe the important thing for us now, okay, post-caucus 2026 gone. How would it, I don't know, influence reform? What has it changed? How has it refocused what you've been doing since from the declaration. I think you call it what, Banjul Declaration?
Banjul Declaration.
You said, oh, you're trespassing on another Banjul Declaration before. You could have chosen another name, but it doesn't matter. Now people will be confused. How would that now change the way you do things? How would it influence your objectives, how you do your work now? From the caucus, what you learned, what you've decided you're going to do, how would it redirect?
I think the focus definitely it comes in terms of perception, especially on what you want to do, what are the new priorities. Okay, now there is more drive and hunger towards industrial development in the Gambia. Okay, there is drive and hunger for job creation, especially for the youth and the women folk. There is drive and need to enhance access to financing. But most importantly, also perception from both within and outside the country, because basically Dangote coming to the Gambia and also the Banjul Declaration, identifying all these lofty ideas. These are ideas that are not only confined to Gambia, but these are ideas that is meant for Africa. So definitely as a country, it gives us that initiative to lead the way in terms of industrialization, access to finance, and also trying to, confront the challenge of unemployment.
Absolutely, you said so much there, but we don't have time. But I would have loved to come back, but we'll have to invite you another time. Thank you very much there, Mr. Lamin Bojang, Director of Economic Policy and Research Unit at the Ministry of Finance. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moj.
Okay.
Thank you.
So viewers, we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll talk to Fode Bojang and Mariama Sanyang from Coast Africa. Hello, welcome back to this morning. Now to our final segment. We're joined here in the studio by Fode Bojang and Mariama Sanyang from Core Africa. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Good. So I've got here as a topic, Core Africa Gambia seeks volunteers. Who's going to start us off? Why? What's going on?
Yeah. Core Africa is an organization that recruits young graduates, Africans, and send them to their own communities in their own country to help, facilitate community-led development. Now, we recruit them for a period of 12 months as volunteers, and at the end of the 12 months, they leave and they become alumni, and we recruit a new group of volunteers. Now, the ones that we have now, their service is ending sometime in October this year, and now we are in the drive to recruit the new cohort of volunteers, which we call cohort number 4, that we'll be sending out. So that's what we are doing right now, and that's the reason why we want as many of the young people, for university graduates particularly, to know about what we are doing and the opportunities that exist for them.
Well, sort of a typical batch of volunteers, how many?
For now, when we started in 2023, we had 11 volunteers. In 2024-25, we had 23 volunteers. 25-26, we went to 41 volunteers. These are the ones on the ground now. We are now looking for 45 volunteers for the next year.
How easy or difficult is that to get the volunteers? You're the communications officer, Mariama.
Right. It's easy and it's not easy because you're trying to reach out to young people. First of all, this is a big opportunity for them because it's professional development, but it doesn't stop at that. It's giving you a chance as a young person to make your mark in your country and also in the African continent. So when it comes to recruiting part, of course, it might be a little bit difficult trying to get what you want because we have a specific percentage of what we're looking for. We're looking for graduates. We're looking for 70% women. 75% women. We're also giving opportunity to PWD, that is people with disability, like 5%. So yes, but all in all, I would say is a 50-50.
Okay, that's a level.
And what are some of the areas where you train these volunteers, or what aspects of skills and let's say to develop upon, and when they go back to their communities, they would help in the development of those communities?
Right. So basically, Core Africa doesn't have a specific skill it trains volunteers on, because the approaches are community-led and asset-based. But when the volunteers are in what we call PST, that is the pre-service training, we train them on skills like economic building skills, the Dugula super cereal making, the soap making, and any other skill that we feel like if a volunteer goes into the community, they will be able to transfer those skills to the women, to the young people, so that in turn, these women and young people would use those skills to gain financial freedom in the community.
That's it. It will be interesting to give us sort of like a tangible example of what has been done, what the volunteer did with the community, and what they achieved.
Right.
Can you give a tangible example so that you can drum it home?
Definitely.
I can see it, I can visualize it. I want to visualize
Exactly. So currently we have about 41 volunteers all over the Gambia, from Fantumbu to Prince, all the way in North Bank. And then what they did is they trained their communities in super cereal, some in tie and dye batik. And especially in Masembe, they did super cereal training there, Dugula. And then this has gone to the community to gain money from. We're talking about 30,000 to 40,000 plus of income. And not just that, the Alil Mak initiative in Seno Bajonki, where we have a volunteer who came up with the super cereal to counter a feeding program problem for the children in the community, because the children struggle with that. Now, not only the school-going children benefit from that, but also the breastfeeding mothers in Seno Bajonki use it to feed their kids and also use it to make money from it. So that is also...
If I may add to that, as you know, Core Africa, we facilitate community-led development. So the skills that she talked about are there, and the volunteers are using it. But prior to us getting hung onto this, what we have been doing is to facilitate, women's group in terms of vegetable gardening. And more specifically, I can say tangibly, 2 communities I can cite in the LRR, in Tankular, our first cohort of volunteers helped the women develop their vegetable garden, where we had a 10,000 liter tank for irrigation. We also had a borehole for them, and we had some troughs, water reserve troughs, so that they can do their watering. Right now, they farm, they do their vegetable gardening 12 months of the year. Now we moved from there, we went to Quinala, and Quinala also, with the support of the American Embassy, we were able to establish a very big garden of about 1 hectare. And there we have more than 200 women over there. They don't even have sufficient space to work. But over there too, 12 months of the year, they can now, do their, in fact, they are so impressed with what they are doing, because we want its sustainability, that themselves now are using their money to bring power, electricity, and other things into the garden, funded by themselves. What we do is to initiate, we become a catalyst as such. Yeah, but these are tangible things on the ground that you can see, not just those places, Taibatu, in URR, you can find them.
How do you decide what projects to pursue?
I think that's amazing. That's what we see about Core Africa. We do not decide what projects to pursue. We work with the community. They put down their problems and we guide them. And then we make them identify their needs and not their wants. So at the end of the day, they're able to know what exactly they need. And our volunteers are trained and equipped in a way that they're able to hold the community's hand and say, this is the approach and step to use to get to the point where you say, this is exactly the solution I need for this problem. So that way, the projects are sustainable. When our volunteers are not on the ground, the community know how to sustain this entire solution because they actually identified their problem and then they work towards it.
I wonder with communities, were they sort of welcoming, or did you have a bit of resistance? Tell us about your engagement with communities. across the country, the different characteristics coming out, I suppose.
Right.
How do you see it? Yeah.
Right. So Core Africa has a very unique approach wherein we don't just say we're here to give you a project. So that is the mandate or stereotype the communities have been used to from back then. So when we got into the communities, obviously at first there would be that resistance, but from the first meeting we have what we call volunteer liaison officers who are on the ground that have about 3 subsequent visits. We call it site identification and site visits to these communities to talk to the village heads, to talk to the people and let them understand. So maybe it would have been hard in the first year, but after the first year, we had what we call referral, like a marketing system. One community now knows what is Core Africa because they'll be like, oh, the organization that brings the Dugula, that brought this skill to this particular community, oh, we are interested. So now we no longer actually wait for go to communities. Communities actually come to us. We want a volunteer here. How can we get a volunteer? And all of a sudden, we're becoming a household name in the Gambia.
All right.
Yeah.
So now the recruitment.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you do it?
Well, we advertise. We send to some, maybe GAMJobs is the one that we have been using for advertisement, and most of the people will see it there. But we also use newspapers. We use platforms that we know about, WhatsApp platforms that we know about, Facebook that we operate, whatever it is that we put the information there. We provide a link for them that takes them to an application form that is centralized. So they complete their forms, and we receive, at the end of the day, we go through, assess them. We have certain criteria that we use and to come up with the number that we require. If we need about 40 people, we might interview 100 plus people, and then bring it down to the level that we require. Sometimes we may contact more than the number that we require because there are some people who withdraw before they come into the service. So we don't have a problem now. We have a backlog of people there that we can pull from to this thing.
And then you say you recruit graduates,
Yes.
isn't it? Do you know beforehand whether you want more engineers or more lawyers? How do you know what areas?
Yeah.
What do you do a kind of initial study to know maybe we'll need more medical people than lawyers or accountants? I don't know. How does it work?
Not really. Not really. I got this question. We got this question basically when we had the UTG recruitment drive like last Friday, and then we don't really segregate. It's literally as long as you are a university or a diploma graduate or equal professional experience, and then you're ready and willing to serve. Because at the time, in this 75 volunteers that we've had in 3 years, we've had nurses, we've had accountants, we've had engineers, we've had ICT professionals, all of them, coders, all of them, and then lawyers. And then now they are all community experts. And then one thing about community is you can fuse it with any discipline. That is the beauty of it.
As part of the recruitment, do you necessarily have to be from a particular place for you to be sent there as a volunteer?
No.
Okay.
No, in fact, it's the opposite. Once we are training you, we realize you are based or you're from URR, but rest assured, our volunteer liaison officers will do their best to send you to North Bank.
Oh, okay. It has to be the other way around.
Yeah.
All right. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
The idea actually is for people to realize themselves, their potentials, and be able to develop themselves. Because Core Africa at the level, at our level, at the office, we are responsible for the volunteers for their personal development. Volunteers are responsible for the community-led development when they go onto the ground. So when we send you out, we want you to a place where you can realize yourself and know the condition on which other people are living. That empathy in you will come out. But not just that, we want people who are principled as well. Really, you have to have the basic principle of, that people can rely on you. No one is there to supervise you except the occasional visit by volunteer liaison officer. So that sense of responsibility is that we try to inculcate in them that, I can work independently without supervision, develop myself, but also transfer some skills to the people that I work with.
Have you had incidents where you've had to send a volunteer packing because of for misbehaving.
Misconduct.
You know, that is a very usual question we get all the time. Not yet, but it's very possible because the numbers are growing. And then you can't expect G3 to be, G4 to be like G3, or, you know, there's always a difference in every cohort. But we do have boundaries, we do have standards, and we keep to them. Because these are grown people, these are grown adults, and then they have a goal. They know why they're there. So if you're on the ground doing something different, then that is your call. It's a personal call. Yeah.
And as a volunteer, it means you're not getting paid.
No, you will get
No
paid.
salary.
No salary.
But you will get paid.
Okay, so that's it. What are the conditions there? How does it work?
Well, we pay them a stipend, a monthly stipend. And then we also provide them a working tool, maybe a tablet or sometimes a laptop. We provide them power banks. And in some cases, some who want a telephone, instead we provide them with a telephone. These are some of them. But the conditions are that you have to use it, not necessarily exclusively for the work, because we know you can't tell somebody not to use his or her laptop. But at the end of the day, when they have a tablet, we let them have it. They go home with it. They go home with the power bank. You know, the only thing that they might not go home with is the laptop, but that also depends on the arrangement. Now, a laptop is more expensive than a tablet. Now, we discuss with you the difference in the cost between the laptop and the tablet, which goes free with you. I mean, if you are willing to pay for it while you are serving, well, you can deduct it from your stipend. At the end of the day, you go home with your laptop.
And these volunteers, do they only work in rural communities? Because Mariama was talking about Kiang, talking about North Bank. I know those villages. So is it okay? You cannot have a volunteer in Brikama, for instance. They have to be based in.
That's a good. I like the questions you're asking. Actually, that's because mainly Core Africa volunteers or Core Africa works in underserved rural communities. It means you have to be vulnerable, and Brikama is not necessarily vulnerable. But we're in West Coast. West Coast, region, the villages. We start in Kanjipad, and then and the Fonyes, we're there. Bandali, we're currently there as well.
But that should not stop. In fact, we may come further down to some of the smaller villages in the Combos, because now we are beginning to focus a little more on youth employment generation, creation kind of thing. And when you go up country in the provinces, we realize that many of the young ones have come down to the coast. So if you want to work with the young people, they don't exist in the numbers that we want. Those numbers might exist closer to the Greater Banjul area. So we will start to work with those communities now. But for now, those that are up country, they will work at their center, but they may also radiate out to satellite villages close to them so that they can be able to recruit the number of youth that they require to work with.
Absolutely. So you said the communities are approaching you.
Yep.
So I take it if you have communities in the urban areas approach you, you would say, of course we'll do it.
We'll think about it. Yes, of course we'll do it.
So how long now with this recruitment? How long do you think it will take generally for what the numbers you want? Yes.
Right. So the deadline is 25th July.
Okay.
It's been open since 15 June, and in between now and then we've been having social media campaigns, and also we just had a live info session on Google Meet of about 100 plus people all over, and then we were in UTG with the alumni and student graduates on Friday. We also look forward to going to University of Education to talk to the students, because the questions you're asking, they've been asking us. A lot of people are concerned about the money. Even though this is a service, we do not want to be motivated by financial gains, but it is a reputable program, and then we assure you, you will be well taken care of.
All right.
Yeah.
So, but I would love to know, even though you've been, I think, meeting your targets, volunteering, people's attitude towards volunteering, how do you see it, over the years, recruiting so many volunteers? What do you see as the national attitude towards volunteering?
I think, to be honest, one thing I would say is inspiring and beautiful. As being part of the recruiters for the volunteers for the past 3 years in Core Africa, and when you interview young people, the resilience and willingness they show, that aside, and the ones that are actually in service, knowing what they get to go through. It's hard, But it's beautiful. But then the resilience they show and then completing their entire program, and the fact that Gambia has never had an attrition of a volunteer cancelling out until just one, which is this year since 2023. To be honest, it's enough to tell you that our young people are ready and willing. Beautiful. I would call it beautiful. They're ready. The attitude is amazing, superb. I'm going to focus on the positives.
What a beautiful assessment of putting it through in terms of
right.
Yeah, having people volunteering. For most of the time, you know, when you ask somebody to volunteer on something, okay, maybe just getting a stipend.
Exactly.
Yeah, at some point they kind of feel that.
Yeah, but these are people who have never even stepped out of Brikama. And all of a sudden you see yourself in Kantalkunda, Fantumbu, which is about 30 minutes near Koina. It's amazing.
So there's an element of an adventure.
Exactly. Big adventure. It's all over our social media pages.
For the very young,
Yeah.
it's an adventure. Because our recruitment, the level is 21 years.
Yeah.
We have the 21 years, but we recruit only the youth category of people from 21 to 35. I think Gambia defines this thing for the around that age, 21 to 35. So if you are in that particular range, then we are interested in recruiting you to become a volunteer. We are not saying we cannot recruit if you are beyond 35, because there was a time we were discussing with the CEO, and she was saying, why not? Why we can still venture into those and see those who have been, like you have served in agriculture, in health, and you want to volunteer your service. And we should be able to try you somehow, but we haven't done it yet.
How did you become involved with Core Africa?
Well, I'm a retiree myself. I mean, I had wanted, when I was working with the UN, I said to myself, when I retire, I want to work for a non-governmental organization and where I can do something. So when I came, I started for about 5 years, and then I saw this advertisement. I said, oh, this is an opportunity, so let me try it. So I applied, and I became country director.
Yes.
Yep.
Mine?
Yes.
I like how biased you're not. Well, I'm always been passionate about communication, especially communication for impact, which is development communication. So I find myself applying for a position as an executive assistant, and all of a sudden I got promoted to communications, and now I head the department. I started it with 6 gentlemen, been the only female for a year. So it's been beautiful, and it's a home to me. Really, Core Africa it's the work we do is beautiful. It's a Pan-African organization in 12 other countries and everything else. But then what we're doing here, the opportunity we're giving the Gambians, and the opportunity you're giving the people that are in vulnerable communities, and the stories you get to tell through lenses, through the content, really is beautiful to me. I take pleasure in doing my work.
Mariama Sanyang, Communication Officer, thank you very much. And Mr. Fode Bojang, Country Director of Core Africa, thank you very much, and good luck in your recruitment drive.
Thank you very much. And thanks to you for having us also here.
Our pleasure. And Gach?
Yes, it's a pleasure to be in unfamiliar territory, but now familiar territory.
Exactly. And viewers, thank you very much. Until when? Tomorrow. Goodbye.